I want you to just close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're strapped into the cockpit of a MiG-25 fighter jet. It's July 2004.
Okay.
You are absolutely tearing through the Russian sky, climbing steeper and steeper until you hit, say, 10 kilometers above the Earth. The engine roar is just deafening. And then the pilot noses the jet down. Hard.
You're describing a parabolic flight that's not a gentle ride. That's a controlled dive where the plane matches the speed of a falling object.
To create weightlessness.
Exactly.
For a few seconds, you are just floating. It's incredible. But then the pilot pulls up, and gravity, it just slams back into you like a sledgehammer. Now imagine doing that 13 times.
13? In a row. That sounds absolutely stomach-churning.
It was. For the man in the passenger seat, at least. We're looking at an account from Vikram Krimadate, an author who actually subjected himself to this.
Wow.
And he didn't walk away smiling. He describes violent vomiting. He couldn't eat anything without feeling sick. It took his body a full day just to recover.
A day?
Yeah, he said his internal systems just went haywire. It was beyond what nature intended for us.
And we have to remember, this was a simulation in 2004.
Right.
He was in a modern jet with modern safety standards. Basically, a tourist run.
That is exactly where my brain went. If a modern person felt that awful, just imagine the physical fortitude, the guts, the sheer endurance required for the very first human to strap himself onto a ballistic missile and, leave the planet entirely.
It forces you to reevaluate the whole legend. Today, we are talking about the first man.
Yuri Gagarin.
Yuri Gagarin.
But this isn't just a biography. We're going to look at the intense pressure cooker of the space race, the engineering nightmares they were dealing with, and the specific combination of traits, physical and psychological, that made Gagarin the chosen one.
It's such a fascinating story because it wasn't inevitable that it would be him. It really came down to physics, politics, and arguably the most charming smile in the Soviet Union.
So let's get into it. To understand Yuri, we have to understand the world he was about to leave. We're talking late 1950s, Cold War.
The space race. And I think we often see it now through this lens of, like, science and exploration.
Yeah, a bit romanticized.
Very. But we need to be clear. This was military. The rockets they were building, the R-7 specifically, they weren't designed for mail delivery. They were ICBMs.
Intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Designed to deliver nuclear warheads. The science was almost a byproduct of the weapons program.
Right. And at the start, the Soviet Union was just leaving the United States in the dust.
Completely. October 4th, 1957, Sputnik 1.
The moment everything changed.
It wasn't just a metal ball beeping. It was proof of concept. It proved the Soviets could put a payload anywhere on Earth. The psychological impact in the West was, it was devastating.
Before that, leaving Earth was just sci-fi.
Exactly. Suddenly, it was a tactical reality. And the Soviets, they didn't stop. They just kept escalating.
Sputnik 2.
Almost immediately. And this is where we meet Laika.
The first living thing in space. A stray dog from the streets of Moscow.
It's a tragic story, really. We often just hear that she died. But the details, they matter. The thermal control system failed. She died from overheating and stress just a few hours after launch.
Oh, that's awful.
It's a grim reminder of how primitive the technology was. They were figuring this out by trial and error, and the errors were fatal.
So the U.S. is watching all this, and they must be panicking.
Oh, absolute panic mode. They founded NASA in 1958 specifically to stop getting embarrassed. They launched Explorer 1. They started sending up monkeys like poor Gordo.
But everyone knew what the real prize was. It wasn't a satellite, it wasn't a dog, it wasn't a monkey.
No, the ultimate capture the flag moment was putting a human being up there and bringing them back alive.
It was about proving the human brain could even function out there.
Right. There were genuine fears that a pilot would go insane or just lose consciousness immediately.
So the Soviets need a pilot. They need someone who can handle insane G-forces, isolation, and the very, very real chance of death. And out of millions of people, they find Yuri Gagarin.
And what's so interesting is that, looking at his background, he doesn't fit the mold you'd expect.
No, not at all.
Far from it.
Yeah.
And this is where the Soviet propaganda machine just struck gold. Yuri was born in 1934 in Klushino. This is deep, rural Russia.
His dad was a carpenter, right?
A carpenter on a collective farm. His mom was a dairy worker. But, let's be real about the living conditions.
Yeah.
No electricity, no running water. He's basically living a 19th century life in the middle of the 20th.
And then World War II just rolls over his village.
Brutal. He was just a kid, maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
The Nazis occupied his village. the family was thrown out of their home, forced to live in a mud hut. Literally a hole in the ground for nearly 2 years.
That's unimaginable trauma for a child.
And it gets worse. His two older brothers were taken by the Nazis as slave labor to Germany.
Oh my God.
They didn't come back until after the war. So imagine the kind of psychological callus that builds. You learn to endure cold, hunger, fear. That's your baseline.
And yet in the middle of all that horror, there's this one moment, a spark that changes everything for him.
It's almost cinematic. A Soviet fighter plane crashed near his village.
Yeah.
Young Yuri and the other kids ran out to the crash site.
And he saw the pilots.
He saw the pilots, these men covered in metals, smelling of oil and leather. And he was just awestruck. He helped them, brought them food. That was the moment.
I'm gonna fly.
And he chased that dream with this incredible tenacity. But he didn't go straight to flight school. He had to work. He started as a foundry worker.
Casting metal.
Casting metal, a blue-collar laborer. From there, he went to technical school, joined a local aero club to fly planes on weekends, and then finally clawed his way into military flight school.
Which is where he met his wife, Valentina.
Exactly. And then, by 1960, the call goes out. The Soviet Union needs cosmonauts.
The first recruitment ever. How many people applied?
The initial pool was huge, about 3,000 applicants.
Wow.
They whittled that down to just 20. And from those 20, an elite group called the Vanguard 6.
So let's talk about the criteria. I'm guessing nerves of steel, but what else?
Well, you had to be a jet pilot, obviously, under 30. But the biggest thing, believe it or not, was the engineering constraints of the spacecraft itself.
The Vostok capsule.
The Vostok 1. It wasn't the Starship Enterprise.
Yeah.
It was a sphere, about 2.3 meters across, tiny.
So there wasn't a lot of room.
There was no room. It was packed with radios, life support, parachutes. A big guy just wouldn't fit.
So Gagarin's height was a factor?
It was a critical factor. Gagarin was only 5'2", about 157 centimeters.
No way!
Yeah. If he'd been 6 feet tall, he literally would not have fit in the seat.
That is wild. Being short was a job requirement for the coolest job on the planet.
Basically. And beyond that, the testing was grueling. They were locked in isolation chambers for days.
Psychological stability.
Yep. They were spun in centrifuges, put in altitude chambers to test for hypoxia.
Yeah.
Just brutal stuff.
And out of those 20, it all came down to 2 men, Yuri Gagarin and German Titov.
Both were exceptional pilots.
Yeah.
Titov was arguably more of an intellectual, he was poetic, sharp. But Gagarin was the symbol.
The peasant son.
Exactly. The Soviet leadership saw the perfect narrative. The son of a carpenter, a boy who grew up in a mud hut, now riding the pinnacle of Soviet technology. It proved that under communism, anyone could reach the stars.
Titov's background wasn't quite the same.
He came from a family of teachers, a bit more middle class. It just didn't have the same punch. And besides that, everyone just seemed to like Yuri.
It was the smile.
It was the smile.
Yeah.
He had this charisma. There is a funny bit of irony here, though.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about his peasant background, but genealogists later found that the name Gagarin is actually linked to the old Tsarist aristocracy.
Oh, so he might have had royal blood.
The Rurik dynasty, yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously the Soviets kept that very quiet. They wanted the hero of the people.
And pulling all the strings behind the scenes was Sergei Korolev?
The chief designer. This man is a legend. Survived Stalin's gulags to become the father of their space program. His identity was a state secret.
Just the chief designer.
That's all he was known as.
Yeah.
And Korolev personally favored Gagarin. He saw that spark.
So the decision is made. It's April 12th, 1961. Yuri is 27 years old.
Imagine the tension. The rockets had a patchy success rate. They'd blown up on the pad before.
He knew the odds.
He wrote a farewell letter to his wife and kids just in case.
He climbs into the Vostok, the hatch closes, and then launch.
Boyakali, let's go! That's what he yelled as the engines fired.
For 1 hour and 48 minutes, Yuri Gagarin is the loneliest man in the universe.
And he's seeing something no human had ever seen before. When he looked out that porthole, he famously said, "The world is blue."
So simple.
Simple, but think about the shift in perspective. He was seeing the atmosphere, the curve of the earth, the fragility of it all.
Now, I want to touch on something here. While he's up there, was he actually flying the ship?
No. And this is a key point. The engineers were terrified that a pilot would be incapacitated by weightlessness. So the entire flight was automated. Gagarin was essentially cargo.
He couldn't take control?
Well, he had an envelope with a secret code to unlock the manual controls, but only in a dire emergency.
Speaking of emergencies, getting up was hard, but getting down turned out to be the real nightmare.
This is the part of the story they suppressed for years. The re-entry was a disaster.
What happened?
The Vostok had two parts. The landing module, where Yuri was, and the service module with the engine. They were supposed to separate before hitting the atmosphere.
And they didn't.
They were stuck together. A cable failed to cut. So as he hits the atmosphere, the capsule isn't aerodynamic. It starts tumbling wildly,
Oh my God.
gyrating end over end. We're talking 10 Gs of force. He's being spun like a top, surrounded by plasma, hotter than the sun.
He must have thought he was dead.
He was incredibly calm on the radio, but yeah, flames were licking across the windows. Finally, the heat burned through the cable, the module snapped apart, and he stabilized.
But he wasn't out of the woods yet.
Not even close.
The landing itself. We're used to seeing capsules splash down in the ocean. A nice, soft landing.
The Vostok wasn't built for that. It was a heavy metal sphere hitting solid ground. If you stayed inside, the impact would probably break your spine.
So, what was the plan?
The plan was to jump.
Eject from the capsule, like a fighter pilot.
Exactly. At about 7 kilometers up, the hatch blew, and Gagarin was shot out of his seat.
Wait, so the spaceship landed in one place and Yuri landed somewhere else?
Correct. And for years, the Soviets lied about this. To claim an official record, the pilot had to land with the vehicle, so they fudged the details.
That's amazing. There's this image in my head of a Russian farmer just minding her own business.
It actually happened. He landed in a potato field. A grandmother and her granddaughter were there. They look up and see this man in a bright orange spacesuit and a white helmet walking towards them.
They must have thought he was an alien.
He had to yell, "I am a friend, comrades. I am a Soviet citizen who has flown from space."
And just like that, the race was won.
Instant immortality. While he was still in the air, the news agency announced his promotion from senior lieutenant to major. He landed as the most famous man on Earth.
The star of the red planet?
He went on a world tour, London, Cuba, everywhere. He was the poster boy for Soviet supremacy. But fame is a double-edged sword.
How so?
He wanted to keep flying. He was a pilot at heart. But the leadership saw him as a national treasure. They were terrified of him getting hurt.
So they grounded him.
Put him in a glass case, essentially. He became a training director at Star City. He was struggling a bit with the fame, not being able to do what he loved.
That must have been so frustrating.
After years of begging, he finally got recertified to fly jets again.
And that leads to the tragedy.
March 27, 1968. He was on a routine training flight in a MiG-15. The weather was terrible, low clouds, rain.
And they went down
Near the town of Kursak, a jet slammed into the forest. Yuri Gagarin was killed instantly.
He was only 34.
Just 34 years old.
That's heartbreaking. To survive the Vostok re-entry, the fire, the spinning, and then die in a training jet.
The cause is still debated. Bad weather, an outdated report, maybe another aircraft. But the result was the same. The first man was gone.
His legacy, though, is just everywhere.
His ashes are in the Kremlin wall, the highest honor. His hometown was renamed Gagarin. There's a 40-meter titanium statue of him in Moscow that's just breathtaking.
Titanium, I like that. Strong, lightweight, made for the future.
And, looking back at that author's account from the beginning, the sickness, the G-forces, it really puts Gagarin's achievement in perspective. We see those old photos, and he looks so happy. But the physical reality of what he did was just brutal.
He sat on top of a controlled explosion, knowing the dog before him died, knowing the rocket might fail, and he did it anyway.
He took the first step. As long as humans look up, they're going to remember his name.
So, here's the thought I want to leave you with. We live in an era where space is becoming commercialized, billionaires are booking flights, but strip away all of that. Put yourself in that tiny, cold metal sphere in 1961. You're 27, you know the risks, you know you're basically a lab rat.
And there is no guarantee of return.
Exactly. Would you have the courage to strap in? Would you take that seat to be the first?
That's the question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the life of Yuri Gagarin.
Keep looking up.